What's up guys, James Blonde here with MMOs.com, finally getting the opportunity to take a first look at Gigantic, one of our most anticipated games for this year, and one that we've been watching for quite a while now in development by Motiga. So, as most of you probably already know, Gigantic is categorized by most as a MOBA/shooter style game in that it's a skill-based battle arena game with an objective and almost standard archetype characters or heroes in a 5-on-5 setting. An easier explanation would be something along the lines of Smite or now Paragon crossed with the game Minimum, if you're familiar with that one. So it's a fairly unique setup that makes it stand out beyond just its cool art style and a roster of interesting characters, which I'll get into later on. Now, the game has been in closed beta for quite some time now, recently making some changes and add-ons to what they now call Beta 2.0, which makes the beta 24/7 and adds in some of the game's progression system, a new hero, and cross-platform play with the Xbox One. That being said, the game is a Windows 10 exclusive title on PC, and unfortunately it's probably not helping them out building a player base. I can say it's a bit convoluted using the Xbox Live app on Windows 10 to even get set up to play the beta when you have a key, let alone requiring Windows 10 in the first place. Regardless, the game is really fun. We just finally lifted the NDA so we can get in and show off the game, so yeah, let's do it. First off, we'll start with how the matches are set up. Now, the objectives are based around the Guardians, which are these huge monsters located on each side of the map. These Guardians belong to one of two factions in the game, House Arion or Devedra, which is kind of a good versus evil thing. Not really much lore on these just yet, but House Arion has the giant griffin, where House Devedra has the giant naga. And that's just for now. The developers have mentioned there will be more Guardians in the future, though I'm not really sure if it's going to be a cosmetic change only for that reason or what, because both Guardians actually come with equal capabilities. The only difference is really the way they fend off enemies when they advance towards the middle ground before they attack the enemy Guardian. Otherwise, attacking or defending either Guardian is equally fun. And yeah, that's pretty much the overall objective, destroy the enemy Guardian. But you and your team can't just walk up and face tank the enemy Guardian to win the match. It doesn't work that way. You have to use your teamwork to make the enemy Guardian weak and vulnerable so your Guardian can help you defeat them. Basically, you power up your Guardian, which is then capable of pinning down the enemy Guardian so that way you and your team can run up there and kick them while they're down. Sounds kind of messed up when you think about it that way, but that's pretty much how it goes. That's the general idea of the objectives, but there's a lot more to it than just that. There are two different maps you can play on as of now, the Ghost Reef and Sanctum Falls. Again, more should be available in the future, but they're not really set up like your typical MOBA would be with lanes, though they do have some symmetry to them, so that way each Guardian is equal distance from each other, and there are equal points of interest, which I'll talk about next. Both maps have high and low spots, so there's a nice vertical element to the gameplay that you don't really have with games like Smite, for example. So jump functionality and specific mobility aspects of heroes actually serve a purpose in this game. Jumping on the ledge so that way your enemy cannot follow is definitely a usable tactic in this game, and something that you get a lot of joy in when you pull it off. So in many cases, there are passageways to get to different locations a little quicker, or just plain better vantage points for sniping enemies, as an example. So the points of interest I was referring to are summoning areas for creatures that you and your team have complete control over. The creatures that you're able to summon here not only provide you with some sort of power or quality of life feature like vision, for example, but each one you summon acts as a guard dog protecting the pathway to your Guardian, kind of like a tower would in a MOBA situation. Not quite as powerful, but still very effective, and unless you're a ranged character, you don't really want to have to take one on by yourself. Then again, because of the team-based gameplay, you shouldn't have to. You'll notice on the map that there are equal spots for summoning these creatures for either team, with the ones on the center always contested, especially on the Sanctum Falls map. Here, your team will either capture the altar point or the river point, rarely both. If you or the enemy has both, then the other team's probably not going to win. Luckily, they are named for easy reference between team members. I definitely like that feature. If your team is doing well, you can push past the middle ground and take out their creatures to start replacing them with your own to give you a huge advantage when pushing towards their enemy Guardian in the long run. So it's easy to say the creatures are a very important factor for map control. But beyond that, you can upgrade the creatures to make them more powerful as guard dogs and have a larger influence on the area around them, activating their abilities. Summoning the basic creature doesn't cost anything, minus the time it takes to summon them, but if you want to upgrade them, you'll have to sacrifice your focus ability, which is essentially your ultimate, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. Depending on the function of the creature depends on how many focus points it takes to upgrade and how long it takes for them to transform into the upgraded version of the creature. For now, there are 4 different creatures you can summon, but you can choose only 3 while in game. Otherwise, you have to select which 3 are in your loadout, so to speak, and this will become a lot more important when they plan to release more of these creatures again later on. The CERBERUS grants vision, revealing enemies on the minimap within 70 meters, very useful. As a guard dog, they can spit fireballs and dash attack, setting the enemies on fire to do damage over time, also very helpful. But like I said, you do have to have them upgraded in order to take advantage of their complete attack abilities and focus skill. Now the Bloomer creates 3 healing pools within a 30-meter radius that your team can stand in order to heal rather quickly. This is useful to have when trying to hold a certain point or even push forward, especially if you don't have a healer. Whereas the CERBERUS is better closer to your Guardian in order to use as a last line of defense. Same thing goes with the Drake. The Cyclops, on the other hand, is a great defensive creature that puts up walls near its location, which effectively shuts out enemies, keeping them from taking that spot easily, or even passing through to try to sneak around to get to your Guardian easier. They're also the most tanky, or almost the most tanky when it comes to health, and most powerful when attacking as a melee fighter. So these guys take 2 focus points in order to upgrade, instead of just 1 for the Bloomer and the CERBERUS, but in a lot of cases it's totally worth it. And last but not least, you have the Fire Drake, which also takes 2 focus points and has almost as much health as the Cyclops. Takes more time to summon as well. The Fire Drake is a siege weapon, basically, that fires projectiles periodically within a 45-meter radius towards the enemies. This guy functions more like your typical MOBA tower in that regard. From what I've seen, these guys are best to put off to the side so that way they can attack as people are trying to get past to your Guardian. So that's the 4 that are available now, but you can easily see how effective and necessary they are in the fight. It's definitely good to have 1 of each in most cases, but you should never be without a Bloomer for the heals. In fact, 2 are even better. So you'll notice as the match goes on, these power nodes start to show up where the creatures can be summoned that will give your Guardian power to advance if you collect them. You can see the power bar fill a little bit after collecting the node and the Guardian's health just below that, so you know how you're doing in the match. So you can collect these nodes or sneak up on the enemy Guardian, whether it approaches or while it's all the way back on its side of the map, if you can get past the defenses, and attack its gems in order to steal its power, adding power to your Guardian and depleting theirs. Definitely a separate attack strategy from the standard attack and defend gameplay, and there are certain heroes that are perfect for this approach. Trip is one of those, seeing that she can be completely stealth for a little while. So after a certain number of attacks between the 2 Guardians, or a certain amount of time frame during the match, if you haven't already won, it switches over to the Clash, a final climactic battle where both Guardians make their way to the middle of the battleground, and the summoning circles don't matter anymore. The creatures that you already had summoned in the main portion of the maps actually get moved over to help you defend in a brand new formation. They're sort of the front lines. Here, getting kills and collecting power nodes power up your Guardian, and there's a lot less stopping you from finishing off the enemy when they're down. So it's basically a sudden death portion of the match, and especially with the Sanctum Falls map, the map completely changes to a smaller, more straightforward deathmatch style map. So as you probably noticed by now, the controls in the game are more along the lines of a third-person shooter than anything else. The gameplay is very fast-paced, and so the controls are set up to fit that nicely. Of course, you use W, A, S, and D to move. Shift actually lets you run, and double tapping any direction lets you dodge, but you do have a stamina system that limits you on this, and it's also tied into your abilities. So your abilities, which are on left click, Q, and E, use various amounts of stamina in order to use. It's not really ever a problem seeing that it recharges so fast, but this can help limit players from sprinting in, dropping all of their abilities, and then sprinting out. This way they have to either decide if they want to sprint in or use all of their abilities, not both. Otherwise, a lot of the times you have some sort of escape ability with your hero, whether it be jetpacks like with Beckett, speed boost with Lord Gnosis. Mozu has a blink, and Trip, of course, has a stealth ability, just to name a few. So of course, getting in, dealing damage, and getting out can definitely be part of the plan. It just needs to be thought out ahead of time, for the most part. So overall, the feel of the heroes control-wise, combined with a fast gameplay and verticality, really separates it from games like Smite and makes it feel a little bit more like TF2 or even Loadout. And again, you do have an ultimate ability, or focus ability as they call it in this game, on F, but that actually has to charge up in order for you to use it. Seems like it charges based on your interaction with enemy heroes or creatures. Killing them will power up your focus, kind of like taking damage in Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter will fill your super gauge. The cool part here is that you can stack charges for your focus ability, so that way you can use it several times in a row. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, you get to decide to use these focus charges for the ability or to upgrade your creatures. Either choice is going to have a really nice impact on the fight, and I really like this mechanic in the game. And speaking of decision making, the other part of the heroes that makes this game super fun is their progression system. If you want to compare it to a MOBA game, it's more along the lines of Heroes of the Storm, where you have the choices when it comes to upgrading your abilities instead of just upgrading them to become more powerful on their own. As you level up, you gain skill points to put towards your abilities, and each ability has sort of a mini tree to follow that will actually change the ability based on how you want to play or how the match is going. You can decide. Same thing goes with your passives, which you gain every 3 levels or so, up to level 10, which is the max. A lot of the times the passives are very similar with the heroes of the same style of play, but like I said, depending on how the match is going or how you like to play, you can decide each time out of about 6 choices how you want to build your hero out to suit your play style or, I don't know, better help your team, which is probably a good idea. This is definitely a cool mechanic that takes the place of an item system and at the same time offers a ton of variety even on one individual character. But yeah, beyond the interesting gameplay and the awesome progression/upgrade system, the game also has a decent variety when it comes to the hero archetypes themselves. For example, if you want to play the game more like a shooter, you might want to choose Beckett, the latest hero with a machine gun, grenade launcher, and, like I mentioned, jetpack. Go with Imani if you like to play run-and-gun snipers. Definitely have to admit, she is a really fun character to play, even if you don't like sniping. My favorite is HK206, a death trap type robot that can be really tanky while still dishing out the damage and is capable of transforming into a standing minigun turret that just mows through enemies. Very satisfying. And that's just some of the shooter type characters, which actually make the game feel more like a shooter game than you might be used to. Otherwise, if you want a different approach, you've got melee characters that are bruisers and tanks, healers and mages, and of course assassins. All in all, there are 16 heroes to choose from. Of course, more are on their way. You can unlock new heroes just by playing the game. In fact, seeing that the game is still in closed beta, they haven't exactly added in a monetary element. When they do, it will be the rubies, like you see here, but just like it is now, as you level up your account, you earn these just by playing the game. The same way you earn the in-game currency, which can be used to unlock heroes as well as additional creatures to summon. The heroes vary in price, but it's very similar to other MOBA games. They always have 3 heroes on free rotations, and it changes on Thursdays, apparently. As of now, it doesn't really take long to unlock even the most expensive heroes in the game with in-game currencies. I'm sure in time they'll have more heroes and skins for heroes like we're used to seeing in MOBA games. Oh yeah, and another way of earning in-game currency, as an example, is the daily fortune cards, which are like daily quests that get you rewards based on criteria, like getting 3 kills without dying, killing the enemy that kills you last a certain amount of times, things like that. But as for now, guys, that's pretty much the gist of Gigantic in closed beta. My opinion on the game is that it's fantastically fun and innovative, clearly. I know you guys are super tired of MOBA games, so it's a good thing that this isn't one of them. Well, that's how I look at it. Unfortunately, though, the developers at Motiga are going through rough patch after rough patch with finances developing the game. They wanted it to be a launch-ready title by early 2016, and they are still a ways from it. They've had to lay off a decent amount of the dev team due to lack of funds, basically because they didn't decide to monetize the game from the get-go with, founders packs or buy-in early access, something we usually complain about all the time, but here we see that it would have been really helpful keeping the game continuing along the path it should be on. For now, there is no way the community can actually help fund the game, which might be something they do next, like an all-hero pack or something along those lines. Anything to help them get back where they need to be. Of course, it also doesn't help that it's a Windows 10 only game, I get that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's an option for Motiga to drop out of that headlock, and they probably didn't expect it to be an issue in the first place. Anyway, that's enough ranting. The game is absolutely fantastic when you look past the Windows 10 only part. Definitely still a highly anticipated title on my list. And we should have some closed beta keys to give you guys very soon at the giveaway section at MMOHuts.com, so you can try out the game yourself. Definitely worth it. Check out the game profile for more information about Gigantic. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, that's going to be it for me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.